Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm calling to order the public hearing. We have already done the pledge to the flag at the start of our audit meeting. Kate will do the roll call.
Councilman Coleman?
Here.
Councilwoman Allen? Here. Councilman? Councilwoman Simpson? Here. Supervisor Bailey?
I'd ask first for a resolution for the acceptance of the agenda as prepared by the town supervisor. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Okay, we originally had two public hearings scheduled for this evening. The public hearing that was scheduled for the Accord Speedway will be rescheduled. The Accord Speedway has presented a difference from the original. They have a date change and we advertised the dates in the public hearing notice when the waiver that they were requesting. On advice of our counsel, she said we need to schedule a public hearing. So we will be doing that later on. So first, we have a public hearing for local law number 1 of 2022, amending chapter 140 zoning to add in section 140-13.1 accessory dwelling units. The notice that was put out, notice is hereby given pursuant to New York State General Municipal Law, Article 18, Section 808. Town Board of the Town of Rochester called a public hearing on March 31, 2022 at the Harold Lipton Community Center, 15 Tobacco Road, Accord, New York, 12404, commencing at 7 p.m. The public will be heard on the matter of local law 1-2022, amending chapter 140 zoning to add a new section 140-13.1 accessory dwelling units of the code of the Town of Rochester. Due to the pandemic, we are accepting comments virtually as well as in person. We will start first with the people who are present. Then we will go to the people who are on virtual if they wish to speak. And then we will read the letters and comments received by email to the town clerk. So I'll start with the people present. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this local law? Yep. We'll start with you, and if you could just identify yourself.
Sure. Pull this up here. Hey all, my name is Ellie Perez. I live locally. I'm a local real estate agent. I believe that it's important to create more affordable and accessible housing in our community. I want to thank Erin for drafting the law, and I want to thank the town board for doing it. In a time where there's a critical housing shortage, this is an important part of the solution. In the past week, I had the opportunity to have two conversations, one with some community members in discussing this law as part of the solution to the housing crisis, and one with Erin in relation to the intention behind creating this law. The takeaway from both of these conversations is that there is an overall interest in creating affordable and accessible housing, as well as seeing this law effectively create more housing in our community through day use. I do have some suggestions for making this law more effective. There is one part of the law that mentions that it would restrict driveways, so possibly getting rid of those restrictions would be helpful. Also, there is a part that mentions the size of the ADU. It says that it would only be 40% of the primary structure, but if the primary structure is really small, then that would limit people in what they could do with it in terms of long-term residents staying there. The other, the yearly affidavit clause, this could be on ADU owners and in promoting the goal of the law. I do want to thank the town board for amending the part of the law to having it be uniform with the original and changing that. I think that will help it be more accessible for community members to build ADUs. So though I think these suggestions are important for the law, I do want to clarify that there is more value in passing this law than in holding up the law to comb over. I do hope that if the town board is not able to make these, that they can commit to the community to continue to improve the law for the sake of creating more long-term accessible housing. The ADU law is an important first step to us in our community. We also need to realize that this alone, community members are eager to step up and create solutions. The creation of a housing advisory committee and way in on the ability of community members to be able to discuss. ADUs is one approach to the issue of accessible housing, but some other approaches that the housing advisory committee could possibly create are mixed income public housing of co-ops, as well as networking with homeowners looking for housing. The possibilities, community members are interested and able to create change, to be able to come together in order to create this change. In conclusion, I am here to support the passing of the ADU law, urge the town board to take on the support of the community in solutions for this housing crisis.
Thank you. Ma'am, you want to? Yes.
You appreciate living in the country where I was, and I don't really know a whole lot about. I haven't been to the town meeting before. Great way to get involved. Just want to share just a tad about my story, which is in the town of Rochester since 2014. 2015, my oldest son was a special military part of the team. So he in the backyard, so I went and looked and found the house in the detached garage with an apartment of it. Okay. So it's been in always it's too small. So this last year I made an extension of the apartment, double the space. Locked, Jerry came over, I made sure I can't fit. My understanding now is this law, I don't really enough details, so forgive me. I'm gonna end up living here. This is my property. I'm gonna have rules where Jerry has to come back every 2 years because this is my legacy. This is my home. I pay the taxes. I'm very responsible. I'm mindful of this. How it impacts my youngest son is in there and his children. I have other grandchildren. This is where they're going to live. Please don't put any more rules on them. Okay? I appreciate that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you mind sharing your name?
I'm sorry. Excuse me. My name is Donna.
Thank you, Richard. Anyone else wish to speak?
Just to echo what Donna said, but built an accessory dwelling on my property, it's just waiting for my become sale. And it's probably 3 times the size of my house, of the main house. That's because we took an old barn property. And when I bought my land 18 years ago, that lapsed. And over I rebuilt the barn. I jacked it up, put the barn, the first barn was Untitled. That barn lives again. And now I live in the barn, and my son lives at the house with my grandson. So my kids couldn't find a place to live, and why should they pay and go get rent? So in the house, and then that's his brother. So we wanted to live in quarters for my husband. I see you vote. I don't really feel like having somebody come to the house every few years. I think that's community, whatever government overreach and human rights. I should be able to have somebody look at my house every few years. Not everybody in accessory dwelling is renting that. A lot of us, like Donna and myself, are doing it to make our families a more extended family on land. In today's America, we're going back to the old times where families have to live together in order to afford to live. So that's my part of it. I didn't know about this driveway thing. That's the part I know, and that's the part I'm concerned with. I'm here to think about everything looking the same. Nothing the same. I came from Florida, a gated community where every house was identical. And it was the color, it was only 4 colors to pick from. I lived there. I would really, uniqueness that is the town of Rochester. Tina Birdie Russell.
Anyone else? Public wish to comment? I'm going to open it now to the people who have, I'm just going to go in order on my screen. First, Claire Wasser. If you want to comment, you can unmute yourself, please.
Hi, I wrote a letter. I don't know if you want you must have received it.
If you want to speak on the letter, I mean, if you send a letter in, it will be part of the record, but feel free if you'd like to build off your letter as well. So,
If I submit a letter, does everybody get a chance to read it?
yes, the town clerk has distributed all the written comments to, yeah. So we just confirmed it is in the packet. You didn't say in that, you're welcome to.
Okay, well, my letter, I don't have to read the whole letter if everybody has a copy of it, but it basically thanking the town board for addressing this issue as it affects it's an issue that is affecting the larger community and this town, and it's at a critical point, and especially to low and middle income groups. And I don't see right now how this the law as it's written is lined up with the comprehensive plan. And so there's issues that I see that it is in conflict with. So I'm asking that those are addressed. And that's basically it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Next, I will ask Shannon Seitz, and I will. Well, we have your written letter.
Thank you very much. And I'll just give a quick overview of what was in my letter. As with Claire, I really want to thank the board for tackling the issue of ADUs and just commend the board for going to all of this hard work to put the proposed law together. I really appreciate the purpose and intent of the proposed law, as it really does aim to address the needs and concerns of a broad cross-section of residents. Whether you're primarily interested in providing additional housing in an area where we desperately need it, or you're concerned with preserving the character of the town. So thank you again for this. I did have a couple of concerns with the law as written. The main concern I have is that some of the restrictions in the law do seem to limit the potential of ADUs to increase the housing stock for low-income families. One concern I have is that restrictions on ADUs to have a maximum of 1 bedroom, may exclude couples or an individual with a child from residing in an ADU. That seems to be a critical part of our population that we want to provide housing for, or additional housing opportunities. Another is the restriction that ADUs must be less than 40% of the gross floor area of the primary residence. Here, I guess I just asked the board, why not consider limiting ADUs to be no larger than the primary residence? And I do appreciate the concern that we do want to maintain the character of the town, but I'm wondering if this restriction is a little too restrictive. And finally, I think it would be useful to include some very clear definitions for some of the central features of ADUs in the law. For example, what specifics do bedrooms, kitchens, and foundations need to meet in order to be in compliance with the law? And this is just a matter of introducing more precise language. And that's everything I have to say. Thank you again for taking this important step.
Thank you for your comments. And next we have a phone number I'm seeing is 3245. If you want to unmute yourself, if you wish to speak, *6 on your phone to unmute yourself. On 3245. Okay. We will assume you're just listening in then, and excuse me, read the written comments we received. The first is from Elizabeth Zeldin. It says, Mr. Hayden, I work for a national affordable housing intermediary and work closely with municipal leaders throughout New York State on housing and displacement issues. So was intrigued when I learned about the pending ADU bill. I'll be late to the game. I read through the language and listened to you from the February 16th meeting. I'm writing to the opportunity to broaden the applicability to existing building is a short-term rental. It has so many STR lots, at least 100, I believe. So limiting the opportunity to build additional of those lots feels like a missed opportunity. Because ADUs are for primary residency, of course. Coming late to the conversation, but I did want to throw out this spot since there is such a fantastic opportunity to provide needed opportunities for long-term rental housing. Disclosure, my husband and I have a pending SDR per town office. Excuse me, but per my reading of the law, our lot is non-conforming already, so this request is writing purely from a policy perspective. Next, it says, thank you, town board, for the work towards addressing housing in our town, as housing in our town and in the larger community is at a critical among low and middle income groups. I'm writing the town board is about to make a decision regarding ADUs. Having the current draft of the ADU that is presented to be decided. I do not see that the current draft is tied and aligned with the United States adopt and implement policies to promote housing that is affordable to those making less than the median household income, that asks to consider incentive and inclusion planned unit developments. That enables a developer to use a single large parcel of land to create mixed-use developments that have a range of housing styles from large lot estates to the second floor of commercial buildings. This effort should also seek to provide housing to accommodate an aging population in the town of Rochester. It's important to create smaller residences in or near family areas that retirees can move into as they become unable to care for more isolated houses. This would allow these residents to remain in Rochester while making growing families and others. Whereas the ADUs are on parcels utilized for two-family or multifamily, on parcels where the principal use is commercial or industrial, on parcels with an existing or proposed that are non-conforming with regards to lot size, less in the R1 or H zoning district. Since there is, I ask that the ADU law as it is written be held until it is more aligned with the comprehensive plan. Goals in the comprehensive plan can't be pursued independently because they are both tied to density, infrastructure, and then I want to thank tackling the issue of ADUs and for all the hard work that is proposed addition to Chapter 140 of ADUs are an important part of the solution to our local house, and the board should be commended for taking this step. I appreciate the purpose and intent of the proposed law, which is to address concerns of a broad cross-section of residents, need for housing, the goal of preserving the character of beautiful. However, I have some concerns that I hope the board will consider for proceeding with the ADU law. I'm concerned that the law conflict with the purpose and intent of the ADU law. As written, seem to limit the potential of ADUs in stock for low-income families. The restriction the maximum of one bedroom, for example, would exclude someone with a child from residing in one. The restriction that ADUs be subordinate to the principal dwelling is important to maintain the character of the town, but restricting the size less than 40% of the gross floor area seems unnecessarily restrictive and may exclude many smaller homeowners taking advantage of the law. Why not consider limiting ADUs to be no larger than the primary residence? Finally, also for the board to define some of the central features of ADUs. For example, there are several references to bedrooms, kitchens, and permanent foundations without defining exactly what specifications are required to be in compliance with the ADU law. Are all of the definitions the board has in mind consistent with those in existing New York State codes? Putting more precise language in the law now excuse me, will prevent uncertainty down the road when homeowners are trying to figure out how to build. Thank you again for taking this important step in housing crisis. And the last letter received, oh, I'm sorry, that last letter was from Shannon. And the last letter received, I want to thank the board for establishing a housing fund. The problem of housing is a very serious one in this town. Raising in available housing, especially for those with low income levels, has virtually vanished. It is good to see the important issues of housing availability. The Yellow County specifically encourages towns to pass laws encouraging the construction of ADUs, and I appreciate the harmonious, collaborative way the board members have ADUs because they allow for new housing within existing parcels are one of the quickest to add supply to the housing market. However, the most effective way to promote and realize the potential would be to consider it within a larger strategic framework. Affordability, for example, is a key factor, and the ADU law should be written in such a way that it does not just add new housing stock, but that it also increases the likelihood that this new housing will be affordable to moderate incomes and to families. I suggest the committee and ask them to take on this ADU law as a so that it can be considered within a broader context. The aim set forth in the opening sections of admirable, but will the law as currently written achieve those purposes? Can we expect that aging homeowners, young, older families, or those with limited income, the capital and expertise to plan and construct ADUs, the standards of this law without some kind of help. Zoning relief does not ensure that if the ADU is rented in its demographic by being rented below market. However, there is nothing in the law that would prevent a long-term tenant leasing the ADU as an STR or a new excuse me, or a new property owner from using the ADU as an STR. It would be useful to consider the laws created in California around, since the housing crisis in that state is particularly severe. There are both state and local laws. Interestingly, they point out that ADUs cannot be limited to one bedroom by state law because a limit on the number of bedrooms could be construed in practice against protected classes such as status. Santa Clara County in particular has a proactive approach, including a clear and simple, sophisticated interactive ADU calculator that calculates construction costs, operating costs, and monthly return on investment, depending on the type of construction. In addition, it's worth noting that our State Senator Vinci is co-sponsor of Senate Bill 4547A related. The bill would set 550 square feet as the size of an ADU. The proposed bill would conflict with this proposed state law in other ways, and that is yet another reason to pause before passing. Signed by Andrew Picaric. Does anyone else from the public want to speak?
Hold up the thing. So J, item J, a maximum of one accessory dwelling unit shall be permitted on each qualifying parcel. So it doesn't matter if somebody has a 1/4 acre or 10 acres. They're an accessory dwelling unit, according to this. Yeah, I don't sound like a but so I have 5 acres. 5, and when I bought my land, one of the reasons I got a house on that property was a house on each acre was an acre per house, so that all my sons could have a place to live and they would never have to worry about ever being homeless. And now that's changed. And now it's 2.5 acres in my where I'm district. So I already have one accessory. Now, since I got it before the laws, maybe another one. I think this is very restrictive, and it's about making more homes. You're telling somebody who has 20 acres, 3 acres, or 5 acres, they can only build one. That's not helpful. So my other son, if he moves back here, he's now in the housing market looking for a home in Rochester. I don't know. Most people that are grandparents want their grandkids living in town and going to school here. So I'd like to see that fixed.
Yeah. So to clarify, if you have the density, if you are in a 2-acre zone, you are allowed to have one structure for every 2 acres. The accessory dwelling unit law would not apply because you are allowed under standard zoning to whatever the density for your parcel is. If you're in a 2-acre zone and you had 10 acres, you could potentially, if you could do the water and septic, you could potentially have 5 houses on that. The ADU would not apply. So to clarify what may be some misconception, the density law will always be looked at first. So it's not considered an accessory dwelling unit, it's just considered a dwelling unit. It's not an accessory.
So then it makes the property like a multi-family property?
You chose to build that many houses and you could meet the, there's other criteria you would have to meet. But and I don't want to get into a back and forth, but I'm just trying to clarify a misunderstanding.
Well, it's the way it's worded here then. So it just says qualifying parcel.
Okay. Point taken. Mr. Grasso.
I just have a question on what's our rationale behind having it in a business district?
It's not meant to be a question and answer, so if
So-
you want to make a
Yeah,
statement.
so I have no issues with the accessory dwelling. I think it's a great idea. I just don't understand the rationale of having it in a business district. I don't think that our goal as a town is to have accessory dwellings next to a business to be utilized as something that's not necessarily related toward our purpose of an accessory dwelling. So don't know if that needs further clarification or not.
Well,
something to think
To further clarify, it is not a question, but we have already in our business district, we allow mixed use development.
Correct.
We already allow in our code relief from some density requirements if it's in the same structure. So if the business below with apartment above, again, it's not an accessory dwelling. So all these things meet traditional zoning, they would be classified as this. The accessory dwelling law is to allow relief for people who can't build another structure under standard zoning, who want to build on it.
But would that happen in a business district?
As of the way it's written right now, no. But your point is taken.
We allow what in certain we can do it in the B district.
Yes,
You just can't do it in a parcel that's for commercial use only. It has to be attached to a residence.
right. And so I guess the point I'm trying to make is the accessory dwelling law is not a standalone law. All the other laws that are already in place are still in effect. What this
Can
does
you
is,
elaborate on that? So you're saying, although a residence might be in a business district, as long as it's zoned
Residence. As long as
residential, it would be, but if it's zoned commercial, it wouldn't.
if it's a commercial use, you can't, if the only structure on property is a commercial use, this law, as written now, says you can't put an accessory dwelling on the business.
Then I'm good.
If it's a house
I'm good.
in the business
Yeah,
district, you can.
That's what I want to.
and this is just, and all this input is very helpful because we will go back and we will look at these and try to clarify things better and understood that people aren't lawyers, but laws have to be written certain ways, to cover the regulations. So the point being made is the ADU would not be the first recourse when following the law. The first law would be a review under traditional zoning. It's allowed under traditional zoning, then it's not an accessory dwelling unit. It's just another dwelling unit. And anybody who has the availability to put multiple properties on, multiple dwelling units on their property has that ability, and you just have to go to the building inspector and file a building permit and show that you can get water and sewer for that structure, and you can build it. You don't go to the planning board, you don't. So a lot of these larger properties already have the availability with business to allow the smaller parcels that ability. I'd like to take a second just to read this was referred as the law requires to the Ulster County Planning Board. Recommendations, they are listed as, is it required? No, advisory comments. So it says the town of Rochester has produced a draft law to support the development of ADU that agrees with policies and consistent recommendations of the Ulster County Planning Board concerning the regulation of this type of use. The UCPB would like to congratulate the town on this draft law and offers additional recommendations for the town to consider that may further increase the development opportunities for ADUs. One is the detached density requirements. The town is proposing for proposed units in detached structures require an additional 50% be permitted. The UCPB recommends that if adequate water and sewer wastewater treatment is available on site, the additional density requirements are unnecessary. Referral by the building inspector of the planning board for further review if there are physical design constraints associated with the lot. Then they also offer advisory comments on non-conforming lot size. The UCPB recommends, rather than disallowing lots on undersized lots, that if adequate water, wastewater service is available, that the building inspector is given the ability to refer proposals on non-conforming lots to the town's planning board for site plan review to handle the unique circumstances of these individual proposals. That was their 2 comments. We also referred it to our own planning board. Did you receive anything? I did not either. I'm not sure if the 30 days had passed for that referral. Do you know when the data referral? The county was reviewed on 3/2. So you must have referred it the end of February. Well, this is the day they reviewed
Oh,
it.
that's good.
Yeah, so it was probably sent the end of the 30 days had passed. So all that being said, we heard a lot of comments. I'd like to propose that we hold the public hearing open at this time to be reconvened after the town board reviews the comments against the local law, and potentially making some changes to it. So, we'll hold it open to be convened at a date to be determined, to be the resolution.
Yeah.
Do I have a second on that? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Your comments are very appreciated, and that's, this is what helps us make it work. As I stated earlier, the public hearing for the Ackworth Speedway is for this evening. So with that, I would ask for an adjournment, a motion to adjourn the public hearings meeting, not the public hearings themselves, but the public hearings meeting. And then we will reconvene with the special meeting that is scheduled to follow the meeting.
I'll
So,
make that motion.
do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. We're gonna stop this meeting. I gotta start the other one. Mary Lou, do you have the other sign in? It's on the top of the agenda. You're muted, but.
Okay, I'll just pull up.